How do you make decisions? How do you choose the specific tools, for example, that you might use within a project? How do you think through the past decisions that you made and evaluate if those next decisions that are coming up, whether in a personal life or just work projects or family life, how do you make decisions and how does that affect how you work as a developer? Today we're reading a note from Max Stoiber, how to be better at making decisions. You can find Max on his website at mxstbr.com or on X/Twitter at the same name at mxstbr. So this is how to be better at making decisions. Making decisions is a core part of my job. As a software engineer, the decisions are technical. As a CEO, the decisions are strategic. Either way, I'm making decisions all the time. So how do I get better at it? Below is an ongoing log of what I have learned, plus my decision log template based on those learnings. If you know of any other techniques, please tell me about them. Write it down. Writing is thinking. Whether or not other people are involved in making this decision, writing down your basic line of thinking about the decision will make any gaps in your decision making much more obvious. This doesn't have to be verbose, but it does have to include a few basics. 1. Evaluation criteria in order of priority. 2. Considered options and their pros and cons each. 3. Preferred option and why. Put the evaluation criteria first. I've noticed that people are often implicitly discussing differences in the evaluation criteria and their relative priorities, but don't/can't speak to it explicitly, which slows discussions down significantly. People often harp on and on about the pros and cons of certain options versus other options without being able to clearly nail the root of the difference in their opinion. Explicitly state the evaluation criteria in order of priority first thing in your doc. That way, if people disagree with them, they can speak to it explicitly. I've found that this makes a huge difference in the quality and thus speed of these conversations. They end up sounding something like this. Oh wait, you think a great user experience is more important for this feature than fast performance? That explains why you prefer option 2. I actually think fast performance is much more important because users will rarely interact with this feature directly, but instead use the API most of the time, which is why I was in favor of option 1. Yes, let's get to the bottom of the difference in opinion immediately. Share it with one person. After you write it down, share it with at least one person. They might have valuable feedback or not, but even more than that, as Paul Graham says, just as inviting people over forces you to clean up your apartment, writing something that other people will read forces you to think well. So make sure your decision log is something that at least one other person will read, even if it's somebody who has no context, like a parent or significant other. Reflect with the benefit of hindsight. Another reason writing your decisions down is important is that it enables you to reflect later. You can and should look back at your decision logs months or even years later and assess what you got right and wrong, with the benefit of hindsight to learn from your decisions. For example, after choosing RethinkDB as our database at Spectrum, I realized in hindsight that I totally missed the most important evaluation criterion, community size, and highly overvalued another evaluation criterion that wasn't actually that important, real-time support. Since then, I have applied these learnings to all my future decisions. I have never overlooked community size as an evaluation criterion for a foundational technology choice again. Get deliberate practice from poker? I haven't personally started doing this yet, but I heard Toby Lutke talk on a podcast about how he gets deliberate practice, which is the best way to learn, for his decision-making skills. I make strategic decisions for my job at the company. For most of these strategic decisions, I hope I do well, but I only find out a couple years later. But if I sit down for an evening of poker, I make these decisions every hand. Doing that will change your mind and your brain and help you be prepared for situations you could never predict. I might have to start playing poker. And if you're listening on the podcast, I can link the template decision logs that Max provides in the show notes, or they're in the description below. I think one of my biggest takeaways from reading this note from Max is that I need to do better at writing things down, not just my overflow of consciousness, but also things that I actually decide to do every single day. Whether that's, the reason why I made this particular video or this particular decision, or even in a specific demo, here's the reason why I did X, Y, or Z, because then it makes it easier to, as he said, reflect, because you have this hindsight documented. you wouldn't just leave your code undocumented in a lot of ways, especially if customers are going to use it or if you're passing it off to someone else. And most of the time we do that with our thoughts and our decisions and just the choices that we make. Most of the time you unless you have a incredibly high amount of retention within your brain, you make a decision and then you forget exactly why you made that decision. Again, this is outside of just technical choices, but even within life, most of the time you look back and you're like, I don't remember why I did that, or I don't remember why I decided to do that, or maybe what was I thinking when I did that. And I have come to the conclusion that this year, I think I've done a little bit better just because I have, videos and podcasts like this to be able to kind of express my thoughts a little bit better. And I've done some more journaling and stuff like that at the end of the day. But I also have had it on my chore list for the longest time to make a newsletter. I think that I, for one, want to get better at writing. I think I've gotten better at videos and presenting myself and talking and kind of expressing myself in that form. But I want to get better at sharing my thoughts via written form and get better at connecting to people in that way. But it's kind of twofold. It's one, to benefit the people who might be reading, and hopefully it does benefit people. And I think that, even just writing your thoughts down about decisions that you've made is probably beneficial to some people. Like this note that came from Max was a note about writing notes about making decisions, but it's also a note that now has benefited at least myself to write better notes about making decisions. And I think my emphasis or my goal of creating a newsletter is kind of twofold: to be able to have that opportunity to benefit others and to have it be more set in stone and maybe an easily digestible medium than even video or audio. But it's also to benefit myself of having these documented notes and articles of not just technical things, but things that I'm learning and working through and experimenting with as I go. And I want that to be more set in stone than even these videos. And who knows, maybe I'll get into poker as well. So are you writing notes? Are you writing down the decisions you made, even if you know why you made the decision, or even if you're not evaluating your decision like this template is about how you would make decisions? But are you documenting your decisions so that you have the ability to reflect on them in hindsight? Because I think it is helpful to know, was that a good decision or was it not? What could I do better in the next time? So until then, keep building, keep creating.